I sat in the cramped mediation room watching my brother adjust his Rolex. Again, third time in 5 minutes. Michael had this way of making sure you notice things. The watch, the custom suit, the leather portfolio his assistant had carried in like it contained state secrets. Emma, let's be reasonable here. He leaned back in his chair with that boardroom confidence he'd perfected. Mom wasn't herself those last few years. You know that. Across the table, Dad nodded slowly. He looked older than he had at the funeral 6 months ago. More tired, or maybe just more certain that Michael knew best about everything. The medical records are very clear, Emma. Michael's attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Vance, slid a folder across the table. Your mother showed significant cognitive decline. The will she signed 14 months before her death cannot be considered valid given her mental state. I stared at the folder. I didn't touch it. Something about the way it landed too perfectly centered in front of me, the way Patricia's red nails drummed once on the table after she released it. Too rehearsed. Mom was fine, I said quietly. She knew exactly what she was doing. Emma. Michael's voice had that edge now, the one that used to make me back down when we were kids. You're a nurse. You see dementia patients every day. You had to have noticed the signs. She forgot some appointments, Dad added softly. She called me by your grandfather's name twice. She asked me the same question about her medication 3 times in one afternoon. She was 78, I said. That's not dementia. That's being 78. The medical assessment was done by Dr. Reynolds, I interrupted, finally looking at the folder. Who Michael plays golf with every Saturday. Michael's jaw tightened. Are you actually suggesting? I'm saying Mom left me the house where we grew up, the house she wanted me to have so my kids could grow up there too. And now you want to sell it so you can what? Buy another vacation property? Expand your startup? The property is worth $580,000, Emma. That's significant equity sitting there doing nothing. If we sell, split the proceeds, you could buy something more practical. Something that makes financial sense. It's my home. It's an asset, Michael leaned forward. Mom would have wanted us to be smart about this, and if she'd been thinking clearly, she would have structured things more equitably. I've already put $300,000 into the family over the years, helping Dad with his medical bills, covering your tuition when you went back for your nursing degree. This isn't about being greedy, Emma. It's about fairness. I looked at Dad. He wouldn't meet my eyes. You agree with him? Dad's hands were folded on the table, age spots visible under the fluorescent lights. Michael has a point about the finances, honey. Your mom, God rest her. She wasn't always practical about money toward the end. She donated $15,000 to that wildlife charity because she saw one commercial with the sad music. She nearly bought a timeshare in Arizona from a phone scammer. I had to take over the bills completely that last year. So we liquidate everything. Patricia tapped her pen on a neat stack of papers. Pay the estate taxes. Split what remains 3 ways. You, Michael, and your father. Clean, simple, fair. And the fact that Mom specifically wrote in her will that I should have the house? Patricia's smile was practiced. Which brings us back to the question of her competency when that will was drafted. Emma, I don't want to have to do this in court. It gets expensive. It gets ugly. And frankly, the evidence is compelling enough that you'd be looking at significant legal fees for what would likely be a losing case. Michael pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. I've got a buyer interested already. A developer. He'd pay cash. We could close in 30 days. Your share would be around $170,000. You could put a down payment on a nice condo, something easier to maintain, and still have money left over. Michael plans to invest his share back into his company, Dad said. He's got this expansion opportunity in Austin. I don't care about Austin. My voice cracked. I hated that it cracked. That house is where Mom taught me to bake, where she held Lily when she was born, where she sat in the garden every morning with her coffee. You want to bulldoze that for a developer? I want to honor her memory by being responsible with what she left us. Michael pocketed his phone. Look, I know you're emotional. You were always the sensitive one, but Mom would want us to think clearly about this. The mediator, a thin man named George who'd barely spoken, cleared his throat. Miss Foster, do you have legal representation? I looked down at my lap. My scrubs were wrinkled. I'd come straight from a double shift, barely had time to brush my hair. Meanwhile, Michael had probably had his assistant book him a salon appointment. I can't afford a lawyer, I said quietly. Then perhaps we should consider, George began. The door opened. Everyone turned. A woman in a navy suit stepped inside, carrying a slim briefcase. She was maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back in a simple bun and the kind of calm expression that suggested nothing surprised her anymore. I apologize for the interruption. Her voice was measured, professional. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm an attorney with Morrison and Lee. I represent the estate of Rebecca Foster. Michael's eyebrows shot up. Mom's estate? We're the estate. We're handling everything through Patricia. You're handling the administration through Miss Vance. Yes. Sarah moved to the empty chair beside me, set her briefcase on the table. I'm here regarding a separate matter. A matter your mother initiated 3 years ago. Patricia leaned forward. I have the complete file on Mrs. Foster's estate. There's nothing about another attorney. Because Mrs. Foster retained me privately. Sarah clicked open her briefcase. She came to my office in March of 2023 with very specific concerns about how her estate would be handled after her death. I don't understand. Dad's face had gone pale. Rebecca never mentioned any other lawyer. She asked me not to make contact unless certain conditions were met. Those conditions were met 48 hours ago when Miss Vance filed this motion to invalidate the will. Sarah pulled out a bound document, set it in the center of the table. This is a living trust, properly executed, notarized, and witnessed by 2 unrelated parties. It supersedes the will currently in question. Michael grabbed the document. His fingers were tight on the edges. This isn't Mom never said anything about a trust. She didn't tell you because she knew you'd pressure her to change it. Sarah's voice remained level. She was quite clear on that point. This is ridiculous. Michael flipped through pages. She didn't have the mental capacity to create a trust that was drafted 3 years ago. Sarah pulled out another folder. Before any of the alleged cognitive decline Dr. Reynolds documented, Patricia had gone very still. The kind of still that lawyers get when they realize they've miscalculated. Sarah continued. Mrs. Foster came to me in March of 2023. She was concerned about family dynamics. She wanted to ensure her wishes would be protected. We spent 4 sessions discussing her estate, her values, and her intentions. I can provide notes from all 4 meetings. That doesn't prove anything, Michael said, but his voice had lost its edge. Perhaps not alone. Sarah opened the second folder, which is why Mrs. Foster also participated in a recorded testimony with me. She wanted to make her intentions absolutely clear. She anticipated that someone might question her mental state, so she took precautions. She pulled out a small tablet, set it on the table, pressed play. The screen flickered, then Mom's face appeared. She was sitting in what looked like a law office, wearing her favorite blue cardigan. Her hair was neat. Her eyes were clear. She looked directly at the camera with that expression I knew so well, the one she used when she was about to say something important and wanted to make sure you were listening. My name is Rebecca Ann Foster, Mom's voice came through the tablet speaker. Today is March 15th, 2023. I'm recording this with my attorney, Sarah Chen, and 2 witnesses present. I want to make something very clear. I am of sound mind. I understand what I'm doing, and I'm doing this of my own free will. Mom paused, folded her hands in her lap. I know my son Michael will likely challenge my will after I'm gone. He's always been ambitious, always certain he knows best. I don't fault him for that. But I also know he'll claim I wasn't competent when I made my decisions about the house. My throat tightened. On the screen, Mom continued. The house at 847 Maple Drive, the house where I raised my children, where my grandchildren visit, where I've lived for 43 years, that house goes to my daughter, Emma Marie Foster. Not because I love Michael any less, but because Emma understands what that house means. She values the memories there, the continuity, the roots. Michael values financial optimization, which is fine for his own assets but not for mine. Michael had stopped flipping through the trust document. He was staring at the screen. I know Michael will say I'm being unfair. He'll point out all the money he's given the family over the years, and he has been generous. I won't deny that. But that generosity came with strings, with expectations, with the assumption that his financial help meant he got to make decisions about my life. Dad made a small sound, almost a gasp. Mom's eyes on the screen seemed to look right at him. Frank, I know Michael has convinced you that I'm not capable of managing my affairs. I know you think you're protecting me by letting him take over, but I don't need protection for my own decisions. I need my family to respect those decisions. She straightened her shoulders. The house goes to Emma. The savings account, approximately $120,000, is to be placed in a trust for Emma's children's education. Michael has already received his inheritance. I co-signed his business loan for $300,000 in 2019. That was his share. I told him that at the time, though I suspect he's chosen to forget. Michael's face had gone red. She was confused about that. That loan wasn't— There are bank records, Sarah said calmly. Signed documents. Your mother was very clear that the loan was an advance on your inheritance. On the screen, Mom continued. If Michael challenges this, I want the court to know. I anticipated this. I planned for this. And I chose Sarah Chen specifically because I knew I'd need someone who couldn't be influenced or intimidated. Mom leaned closer to the camera. Her voice dropped, became softer. Emma, honey, if you're seeing this, it means I was right. It means your brother tried to take the house. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I'm sorry your dad sided with him. But I need you to know, you deserve that house. You deserve to raise your babies where I raised mine. Don't let anyone tell you that memories don't have value or that holding on to something you love is impractical. She smiled, the way she used to when she'd slip me an extra cookie after dinner. Be stubborn about this, sweetheart. Be stubborn the way I taught you. The video ended. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. George, the mediator, cleared his throat. Well, that's fairly definitive. Patricia was reading through the trust document now, her expression carefully neutral. The trust appears properly executed. If it predates the alleged cognitive decline, it does, Sarah said, by 18 months. Then the will is superseded regardless of any competency questions. Patricia closed the folder, looked at Michael. I'm sorry, but there's no legal basis to contest this. Michael's hands were flat on the table. His Rolex caught the light. The loan wasn't inheritance. It was a loan. She was supposed to understand that. She understood perfectly. Sarah pulled out more documents. She also documented 13 separate incidents where you pressured her to sign papers she didn't agree with, including one incident where you tried to get her to add you to the deed of the house, just in case something happened. Dad's face had gone gray. Michael, you didn't. I was trying to help manage things. You were trying to secure your interest in the property. Sarah's voice remained professional, but there was steel underneath. Mrs. Foster also documented multiple conversations where you suggested she wasn't capable of making her own financial decisions. She recorded dates, times, and direct quotes. She pulled out a small notebook, opened it to a marked page. October 14th, 2022. Mom, you're not thinking straight about this. Let me handle it. December 3rd, 2022. Dad agrees with me that you need more supervision. February 20th, 2023. If you don't let me help with this, we're going to have to get a competency evaluation. I was concerned. You were building a case. Sarah closed the notebook. Mrs. Foster recognized that, which is why she took steps to protect herself and her wishes. Patricia stood, started gathering her papers. Michael, I need to speak with you outside. We're not done here. Yes, you are. Patricia's voice was firm. The trust is valid. The testimony is compelling. And frankly, if Emma chose to pursue this further, there's evidence of elder manipulation that could be considered for a civil suit. The word manipulation hung in the air like smoke. Michael looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time today. I saw something in his face, not quite regret, but recognition. He'd miscalculated. He'd been so certain of his moves, so confident in his strategy, that he'd never considered Mom might have been playing a longer game. The house stays with Emma, Sarah said, per the trust. The education fund stays intact for her children, and I would strongly advise against any further attempts to contest these arrangements. Michael stood. He picked up his phone, his portfolio. He looked at Dad. You coming? Dad was still staring at the tablet, at Mom's frozen image on the screen. She really planned all this? She loved you, I said softly. Both of you. But she knew what would happen. She knew you'd let him convince you. Dad's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted to keep the peace. Michael was so certain, and I thought maybe he was right. Maybe your mom wasn't seeing things clearly. She saw everything clearly. I reached across the table, touched his hand. She just knew you wouldn't believe it unless she proved it. George stood, clearly ready for this meeting to be over. Unless anyone has additional items to discuss, I think we're concluded here. Patricia guided Michael toward the door. He paused at the threshold, looked back at me. I was trying to help, he said. I really was. I nodded. I even believed he believed that. Michael had always been good at convincing himself his motives were pure, that his way was the only logical way. I know, I said, but Mom's way was better. The door closed behind them. Sarah began repacking her briefcase, organized and efficient. Thank you, I said. My voice was thick. I don't even know how to. Your mother paid my retainer 3 years ago. She said to tell you, when this was over, that she loved you, and that she was sorry you had to fight this battle without her physically here. Fresh tears burned my eyes. She really knew. She told me, my son thinks I'm a sentimental old woman who doesn't understand modern finance. What he doesn't understand is that I'm a sentimental old woman who's been dealing with men underestimating me for 60 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. Sarah smiled. She was remarkable. Dad was still sitting at the table, looking lost. I should have believed her. She tried to tell me Michael was pushing too hard, but I thought she was just being stubborn. She was being stubborn, I said. But she was right. Sarah handed me a card. The trust is now active. The house transfers to you through a streamlined process, no probate needed. The education fund is already set up. I'll have my paralegal send you all the documentation this week. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, your mother talked about you constantly, about how you chose nursing because you wanted to help people, even though it meant smaller paychecks and harder hours, about how you stayed close to home so your kids could grow up near their grandmother. She said you understood what mattered. When Sarah left, it was just Dad and me in the sterile mediation room. I'm sorry, Emma. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I know, Dad. I just thought Michael's so successful, and he seemed so certain. He always does. I stood, walked around the table, hugged him. He felt smaller than I remembered, more fragile. But being certain and being right aren't the same thing. We stood there for a long moment, the air conditioning humming, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Outside, I could hear muffled voices, probably Michael on his phone, already recalculating, already moving on to the next deal, the next opportunity. Are you going to keep the house? Dad asked quietly. I thought about the kitchen where Mom taught me to make her apple pie, the back bedroom where Lily took her first steps, the garden where Mom planted roses every spring and complained every summer about the deer eating her tomatoes. Yes, I said. I'm keeping the house. Good. Dad pulled back, wiped his eyes. That's good. Your mom would be, she is. He stopped, started again. She'd be glad. We walked out together into the parking lot. The afternoon sun was bright, almost aggressive after the dim office. Michael was leaning against his Tesla, still on his phone. Patricia was already in her car, probably billing for the full day. Dad paused by his Camry. Sunday dinner? At the house? You're invited every Sunday, Dad. Same as always. I might have to talk to Michael. Try to make him understand. Give him time. I unlocked my Honda, the one with the car seat in the back and the faded bumper sticker Lily had insisted on. He'll process this his way. Dad nodded, but he looked doubtful. He got in his car, started the engine. I watched him drive away, his brake lights flashing at the parking lot exit. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter's school. Lily's asking if Grandma's house is still okay for the weekend. She wants to show Dylan the garden. I smiled, tears still on my cheeks. Typed back. The house is perfect. Tell her we'll plant those sunflower seeds on Saturday. I sat in my car for a minute, the engine running, the air conditioning slowly cooling the hot interior. I pulled up the last photo I had of Mom on my phone, her in the garden, kneeling by the roses, dirt on her hands, smiling at the camera like she'd just won something. She had won something, I realized. She'd beaten Michael's certainty with her preparation. She'd beaten Dad's doubt with proof. She'd beaten the assumption that elderly meant incompetent, sentimental meant foolish, traditional meant wrong. She'd known exactly what she was doing. I pulled out of the parking lot, heading toward home. Not just my home now, Mom's home. The home she'd protected for me. The home where my kids would grow up, surrounded by memories and roots, and the knowledge that sometimes being stubborn about what matters is the smartest thing you can do. 3 weeks later, I got a package from Sarah Chen's office. Inside was the notebook Mom had kept, the one documenting Michael's pressure tactics. There was a note on Morrison and Lee letterhead. Your mother wanted you to have this, not to hold on to the hurt, but to remember that you were never wrong to trust your instincts. The people who love us don't make us doubt ourselves. I flipped through the notebook. Mom's handwriting, steady and clear, recording dates and conversations. Evidence of her clarity, her awareness, her determination to protect what she valued. The last entry was from March 14th, 2023, the day before she'd gone to Sarah's office to record her testimony. It said, Emma will think I'm being paranoid. But I'm not. I'm being a mother. And sometimes being a mother means protecting your children from each other, even after you're gone. Especially after you're gone. Below that, in different ink, like she'd added it later. She deserves the house. She deserves to be stubborn about love and memory and home. I'm giving her permission to hold on tight to what matters, no matter who tells her it's impractical. I sat at Mom's kitchen table, my kitchen table now, with her notebook open in front of me. Through the window, I could see the garden. The roses needed pruning. The tomato cages were still stacked by the shed. Lily's bike was lying in the grass where she'd abandoned it to run inside for dinner. I touched the pages, felt the slight indent where Mom's pen had pressed into the paper. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for knowing. Thank you for fighting this battle so I wouldn't have to fight it alone." Outside, a cardinal landed on the garden fence, Mom's favorite bird. She always said they were good luck, angels visiting, messages from people who loved you. I chose to believe her. I closed the notebook, set it carefully in the drawer with Mom's recipe cards and the birthday cards my kids had made her. Evidence of lives lived in this house, of love protected, of wisdom that looked like stubbornness until you understood it was actually strength. The house was mine now. The memories were mine. The responsibility to pass them down was mine. And I was going to be just as stubborn about it as Mom had been. Because some things are worth holding on to, no matter who tells you to let go. Some things are worth fighting for, even after the person who taught you their value is gone. Mom had known that, and she'd made sure I'd never forget it.